Hello, everyone, and welcome to this enlightening session. We have with us Mr. Sidhartha Mallya. He needs no introduction, so I wouldn't, really try to introduce him. He's a well-known personality across. What people don't know is Sidhartha Mallya has recently written a book, and we are going to talk about that particular book. So, Sidhartha, if you can give us a little bit of background about the book and the inspiration behind the book.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you to yourself and to everyone for having me on here. It's great to be able to be given a platform to discuss books, and it's a great initiative that this literature festival does to kind of give a voice to authors that may not necessarily get that platform. So great, thank you very much. So the book's called If I'm Honest. I have a copy of it right here, which I will show everyone. A picture of it. There it is. It's called If I'm Honest, a memoir of my mental health journey. And basically the book is kind of just an open, raw, honest account of sort of some of the things that I've gone through in my life in the realm of mental health. What it was like being an only child and having my parents divorce and being introduced to a new family when I was young. What it was like growing up with OCD, going through depression in 2016. It's just an open, raw account of everything I've been through. And the idea was, I think a lot of people nowadays, there's a lot of self-help books out there, right? This is not a self-help book. This is just an open account of someone who's gone through certain things. And the idea is to show everyone that no matter who you are in life, we're all susceptible to suffering from issues of mental health. And secondly, you're not alone. If you're going through something, know that there are probably a lot more people going through something, and it's okay to talk about it. So that's kind of what I wanted to get out of this book. And I think that's the sort of main messages that come across, is that, everyone is susceptible to issues of mental health. It doesn't discriminate no matter who you are. It's okay to talk about mental health. And finally, you're not alone.
It is very interesting because a lot of people who have seen you in the past have probably seen you at the IPL parties, and they wouldn't necessarily look at you or relate to you as somebody who will have mental health issues and necessarily go through depression. So can you talk a little bit more about your depression and this kind of aspect of mental health? Health? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect place to use the old cliche, don't judge a book by its cover, because, a lot of the time what we see on the outside is really what we make our assumptions based on. You can go out on the streets and you can find people who are the poorest of the poor, who you would probably think are the ones who are suffering mentally the most. And they will be the happiest people in the world.
Sure.
And then again, you can see people like the actor Robin Williams. Robin Williams is an Academy Award-winning comedic actor, comedy, right?
Yep. And
worth millions of dollars, fame, fortune, success, all of that stuff. And you would assume that he was the happiest man in the world. Mm-hmm. And then he ends up committing suicide. So I think, that's a lesson in don't judge a book by its cover. I think a lot of the time we as a society can have an idea that only certain people can suffer from issues of mental health. And that's a very dangerous way of looking at things, because you can then either feel guilty for what you're going through because you're made to feel like, well, I have everything in life. Why I shouldn't be feeling this way. And I did that to myself. Or you can feel like, well, it's only a privilege problem. I don't have the means, so I have no help, which isn't true. There's help for everyone. Mm-hmm. And for me, my personal journey started, I was probably 2016 is when I really went through it and was diagnosed. My dad has had certain challenges and issues over the past 5 or 6 years, and naturally that can have an effect on a child, no matter what age you are, seeing a parent go through something like that. And also at the same time, when it started, I started at drama school. in the UK. So I was really, being opened up and feeling emotions deeply or deeper than I had before. And that all coincided, and I think it just kind of, opened up years worth of emotion and drove me into this place. But if I look back on it, I think I was probably depressed a lot before that. Depression was the one of knowing it. And I think it was definitely the case with me. But, really 2016 is when I really became aware of what I was going through and when I decided to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. So do you think your depression or the story about your depression, do you think it comes from 2016, 2015 or the past where you think you were depressed? What kind of a role did media or did the kind of entire conversations that were going around at that point of time, what kind of a role did that play in, you going through?
Huge, right? I mean, media can be very vicious. We know that. You see, I'm going to talk specifically for India, but this can happen anywhere in the world. I think a lot of the time, the media forget that the people, well, they don't forget, but the public forget that the people they read about in the media are still human beings who feel just the same as everyone else. A celebrity behind all the glitz and the glamour is still a human being who feels. And I think we saw that, there was a life lost in Bollywood last year by suicide. And after that happened, I think there were a number of different Bollywood personalities who came out and said that articles that have been written about them in the media over the years have really upset them, and that they don't, I don't think the people who write these things think about that when they write things down. Mm-hmm. And I understand the media is very important. It's important to, I think there's a difference between media, journalistic integrity that's there to report the truth, and sensationalized gossipy media, which is just there to make a story. And a lot of the time that can be very damaging. Sure. When you have to read rumors and hearsay, and it does take a psychological toll on you. Of course it does.
Sure. And I guess truth itself has so many variations, what people see on the outside versus what may actually be happening inside. As you said, you had a lot of emotional, you had a lot of depression kind of issues earlier as well, but they were probably not on the surface. So a common man, a user, even a journalist would probably not even be appreciable of that. And they would see the outgoing, the energetic, the present Sidhartha Mallya versus the one that may have had other issues.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and you have to say that you can't fault the journalist for that, right? You only know what someone's willing to portray.
Sure.
But I think it's worth noting that there is, not just with me, with anyone in the world, right? Me, you, anyone, even right now, we have a lot more going on beneath the surface than what we perhaps present to the world. And we should be mindful of that people have depth, right?
Sure.
Not everything is surface level. And it's important to take that into account and realize that, when you're writing things, I believe what's the topic of this conversation was meant to be is honesty a crime or something like that, is what they sent me in the email. No, I think honesty and telling the truth is essential in life. But then I think far too many, you've heard the saying, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. And that happens far too often because publications need to sell papers, right? Or not papers, need to sell whatever it is they're selling.
Sure.
And the stuff that usually sells is scandal, it's a bit of masala, it's a bit of spice, it's the truth with a few extra ingredients added into it, and then it's no longer the truth.
I guess a journalist may even stand up and say, if I was too supportive of Sidhartha Mallya and if I was putting good stories about him, or even talking about his mental health, I will probably be blamed for, not being a right journalist.
Well, you don't, but you see, it's not about, it's not about putting out positive stories about someone. It's about telling the truth.
Absolutely.
Write something about me because you have something to say. You want to review my book and write that you like it and you love it, amazing. If someone review my book and a journalist wants to say that he thought it was trash, of course it's going to hurt because it's personal, I'm the artist.
Sure.
But a book is subjective, it's art.
Sure.
And the thing about art is that everyone has an opinion, and the person who says it's the best thing they've ever written is correct. Sorry, the person who says it's the best thing they've ever read is correct. And the person who says it's the biggest load of trash in the world is also correct.
Also correct. Absolutely.
So my point being is that you don't have to go out of your way to promote Sidhartha Mallya, but tell the truth. Like, I give you a very small example. And this was a very, very prominent, I'm not going to mention names, but very prominent media outlet in England. Yeah, sorry, in India. Now, I was born in the United States. I moved to London when I was less than a year old. I grew up here my whole life. That's why I'm talking to you from now. It's from the UK. First time back in 2 years, which I'll talk about in a minute, because that's another mental health thing. And, you know, I lived the first 23 years of my life in the UK. Naturally, I have a British accent, right?
Sure.
And this one, I'd done some video, or I think I'd done something on Instagram, and this one publication went out of their way to talk about how Sid Mallya did this video in his fake British accent. Now, first of all, how bored must you have been to have to write a story like that in the first place, right? Seriously, there are bigger things going on in the world than what I'm doing on Instagram.
Sure.
But secondly, it might seem like, we can laugh about it now, and it might seem like a pretty, you know, off the shoulder kind of thing, but it hurts, because that's not just a comment between you and me, or me and that journalist. That is something that is going out to millions of eyeballs to see. And I know it's a lie. They know it's a lie. But then you feel that sense of powerlessness, that you can't really do anything to change that narrative. And that does mentally mess with you. Of course it does.
Sure. So did your book really start as a personal diary, or when you started writing, were you clear it's a book that will get published and, you know?
I'll tell you the whole process if you want, how the whole thing came about. So on my 1 year anniversary, so I stopped drinking 3 years ago. And on the 1 year anniversary, this would have been, so I stopped in 2018. This would have been August now, 2019. I put a very brief Instagram story saying, hey, everyone, it's been 1 year since I stopped drinking. I was never an alcoholic, but, you know, whenever I did drink, this is how I felt. So I stopped just, you know, sharing this with you in case it can help others. And I promise you, I got thousands of messages back from people, mainly in India, being like, oh my God, we feel the same way. If you, who obviously comes from the family that I do, can stop drinking, then there's no reason why we can't. So thank you for sharing it. And I was like, wow, if I was able to, you know, reach so many people by a very simple Instagram post, maybe I can continue helping other people by talking about some of the other mental issues I've gone through.
Absolutely.
And then that's where I started that online series called Consider This, which I did during the pandemic, where I started talking about more of the things I went through. And it was a massive hit. The thing's been viewed millions of times. And I was just getting messages from people being like, thank you. You know, we felt like we were the only ones to hear someone else that's gone through this. Thank you. And then, you know, you get to that stage, and I know you do work in the mental health space, and you then start thinking to yourself, you're like, well, I can't stop now. I mean, I've got to continue doing whatever I can. I think, to quote Spider-Man, right? Great power comes great responsibility. And, you know, if you have that means to reach people, then you better be using it for good. And so, you know, I got in touch with a couple of people in India, and I was like, let's put some feelers out and see if there's any interest in a book. And Westland came to me straight away. Sure. And offered me a deal when, you know, without even writing a word, because they knew that, you know, mental health was something I was very passionate about. And obviously I had the series to back it up. And they kind of gave me a free hand at it, and said, you know, do what you want, which was really good of them. And I'd honestly originally planned to do it. I was like, all right, how do I write this? Like, in what format do I want to write this? Because I was very, very big on, it should be personal, right? It should be like I'm talking to you. It shouldn't be preachy. It shouldn't be like, oh, look at me. I'm, some great saint giving you the way to live a perfect life. That's not what this is. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I can write it like an interview, me interviewing me kind of thing. And then it just evolved into what it is today. And I started writing it like typing. And I was like, God, I can't do this. This is really boring. Also, I'm a very like a talkative person. So I was like, okay, well, why don't I interview myself, but like speak?
Sure.
And I recorded myself. Basically, I bullet point each chapter, and then I just talk around it.
Sure.
And then I transcribe my words. And then obviously, you have to put it into proper sentence formats because it's like ums and ahs and this and that. And that was my process of doing it. And but the one thing I was very adamant from the beginning is, one, it should be my voice. And I was very clear on that with the editors at Westland, and they were great to me. Like, they gave me whatever I asked for. And the second thing is that if I'm going to do this, I'm either going to do it and tell the entire truth, or I'm not going to do it at all.
Sure.
And I feel like, I mean, as the title suggests, it was originally under the working title of Consider This as like the series.
Sure.
And then I kept finding myself saying, like, if I'm honest this, if I'm honest that, if I'm honest this. And I'm like, hang on, that's a perfect name for what I'm trying to do here. And that's where it came from. But yeah, it was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to bare my soul kind of thing.
Sure. Sure. And from what I have read so far, I think you have done exactly that.
Thank you.
Bare your soul. So that's what I found very fascinating when I read through the book. I mean, honestly, when I got the book, and I started looking at the first page, I didn't know what to expect. So, but as we went on, it looked like something that really made sense, looked like something that is a true account of, how a person may be feeling. So a couple of other things that I thought might be very interesting for our audience is, in your book, you have talked about OCD, and you have talked about the process of working over your compulsions. Now, you are one of the few people that I have seen who actually acknowledges I have OCD. I had OCD.
I still do have it, and I will always have it. And I think that's the important realization.
Mm-hmm. So what was your process of getting over some of the compulsions? I mean, OCD, but some of the compulsions you may have to.
So just to rewind a little bit, you said I'm one of the few people who has actually sort of like admitted it. Honestly, it's probably because there are so many people out there who suffer who don't actually know it is OCD, because it's such a kind of niche thing, right, that isn't really spoken about. And it's not really something and that someone would necessarily assume was a mental health related issue. I wouldn't. As I said in the book, it's not something that I would have initially been like, oh, this is a mental health problem. But it was painful. It's like when you shine a light on anything, right? And you're like, all right, God, I'm going to work on this now. It's painful. And there was this amazing workbook. I worked through some of the stuff with my therapist, and then she gave me this workbook. And she's like, look, I don't know how it's going. This is 2 years. I did it in 2 years ago now. I did this workbook. And she's like, look, I don't know how it's going to be for you, because I'm not someone that likes structure, like rules and this and that. She's like, but go through it. Don't become compulsive about doing the book, right? Find the areas of it that you want to work through. And I ended up doing the whole thing. And that, how it helped me is it first of all gave me an understanding of what it is I was dealing with, right? I think in life, awareness is key to anything. If you're unaware of something, it's as good as it kind of like not existing, because it's as good as you not being able to do anything about it, right?
Sure.
But once you become aware of, okay, this is what I'm going through, this is why I'm doing it, this is what it is, it then becomes easier to identify the patterns. But until you become aware of all of that stuff, you're kind of in that no man's land.
Sure. So a lot of people, you mentioned that you went through drama school, and that helped you be more expressive. A lot of people probably get prescribed drama school as a medicine to when they are going through depression, so that they can become more expressive. In your case, it happened the other way around, that you went through a drama school, and that gave you the emotions to go through depression. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I think Hugh Jackman said it. He said if it was up to him, everyone would go to one acting class in their life. because it does. And you know, the school that I went to, the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, they offer, I don't know the exact name of the course, but I think drama therapy is an actual degree, right? Where, and then if you graduate, you can then go and teach drama to jails and prisons and other underprivileged communities and stuff like that, because it's a form of healing. It's a form of help.
Yeah.
For me, I knew that I wanted to be an actor. Like I've always been very expressive as being an only child, but I think I was probably conditioned to bury some of that emotion, just as men generally are conditioned to. And the fact that I went to an all boys boarding school from the age of 10 meant that I wasn't really ever in an environment that was kind of designed to show what I was feeling. And then what happens is you start compartmentalizing, you start pushing down, you start putting up a guard. And what drama school did was just remove all of that and really get me to feel all of the stuff that I was already feeling.
Sure.
Just without that protection mechanism.
Sure. So what are your plans for promotion of this book? Is this something that you think you will spend a lot of time doing the promotion? You will go to, book signings and do other things?
I want to. I mean, we've been out for a couple of months now. Obviously, I live in Los Angeles, so a lot of it has been, hard. And obviously the world that we live in today, travel's not as easy as it was with the virus and everything. So a lot of my promotion has been online. It's been Zooms like this, a lot of interviews with journalists, live sessions. I did an Instagram live with Kabir Bedi, Shobade, and a number of different people. So at the moment it's been all online, but yes, I would love nothing more to come to India and do a book tour and do signings, and not just signings. I'd love to sit and chat with people who've read the book and talk about mental health. I'm not trying to promote this book to make money. If anyone knows, and every author will tell you this in this festival, is that, you don't get into the writing business to make money. Like, no one's making money on books anymore. Like, if people think that we're making millions of dollars off these books, especially in India, forget it. Like, it's just not happening.
Sure.
But the reason I want as many people to read my book as possible is because the more people who read it, the more people we can potentially help, and the more we can kind of expand the conversation around mental health.
Sure, absolutely. I think that will be really valuable for people. In fact, when I wrote my first book, in fact, my only book, which actually got launched in September.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. The book is actually called India Vision New Age Equality.
Right.
I was slightly, people call it twisted, I call it direct, but I have in my view, a direct view of equality, which is very different than what people talk about today. I mean, I don't like the feminist activists. I don't like people I don't like privileges, subsidies, and any kind of reparations. I want equality to just become equality. Everybody to be treated just equally.
So you don't like feminists, is what you're saying? You don't like that?
I don't like feminists that actually use, they become feminists and they start using the luxuries, the subsidies, the privileges and everything that actually probably should be reserved only for the bottom of the pyramid, women who actually might need this, more empowered women who fight for equal salary and, they actually consider equal salary as their right. For them to go out and use some of the other subsidies and privileges and all, I kind of find that a little odd. And similarly, same thing about the LGBT community, same thing about the other kind of sections of society that use privileges and all, which are provided so that the bottom of that could rise up. And it is actually, instead of going there, it gets used up by the cream of the top in those areas. So anyway, what I would do is I would love to actually send you a copy of the book.
Yeah, please do. I think that, I think here's the important thing with what you just said about your book. You may read mine and not agree with some of the stuff that I've written. I may read yours and not agree with some of the stuff you've written. That's part of life.
Yep.
But we should all be open to at least hearing out other people's points of view.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where no one's saying you have to like what the other person's saying or agree with it, but at least listen to it and then make your mind up. But don't make your mind up before you've given the person a chance to speak.
Sure. I will take this sentence from you and use it in the promotion of my book, because that is exactly what I tell people. Read the book. If you like everything that I have written, either you are lying or you did not read the book.
Yeah, but don't directly quote me. It might hamper your sales.
No, I don't think people associate with you as somebody that they should avoid, and they should not.
I hope not. I mean, I hope, and that's something that, you know, I try to say with this book is that, if I can for a second, is that read my book for what it is. You know, it's my name on the front cover.
Sure.
If you like the book, like it because of the book. If you don't like it because of the book. But don't not like it because I happen to share a last name with someone else you may not like.
Sure. I guess that's a very fascinating question that I have always wondered. The last name Mallya, you know, for portions of your life, I'm sure that was the highlight of your life. For portions of you know, your life, that may be the lowest point, and for portions of your life, you may not really care. But at this point of time, everybody else probably seems to care about the fact that you have the last name Mallya.
Yeah, it was what I mean. Like, I grew up in England with my mother. She kept me very grounded in a very normal life. I went to boarding school when I was 10 years old. The name Mallya in a British boarding school meant nothing.
Absolutely.
But then I'd go back to India in the holidays and the name Mallya suddenly meant something.
Sure.
So it was this duality, right? I go to Los Angeles 9 years ago, and the name Mallya in the LA acting world means nothing.
Sure.
But from a producing point of view, 10 years ago, they think Mallya, you put that into Google, you see everything that comes up, you're like, oh, money. This person could invest in our film. So then again, it started to mean something.
Sure.
10 years later today, with all the stuff that we have going on, to those same people that it meant something 10 years ago, today it means nothing. So for me, it is what it is, right? You know, for the longest time, I felt guilt, as I talk about in the book, because of the life I came from. But at the end of the day, look, here's the truth. Yes, my last name is Mallya. Yes, I happen to be born into this family. I happen to have a certain someone as my father. Get over it. It wasn't my choice. It wasn't your choice. It was nothing that any of us could have done anything about. So what's the point of going on about it? It is what it is.
Sure.
There's literally nothing any of us could have done to control this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it is what it is. You don't want to like me because I've got a certain name, don't like me, but there's nothing I can do about it.
Sure. Sure. One last question before we kind of end this. This book, Netflix series on the OTT platform, what do you think? Would you want to do that?
Would do this on a OTT platform?
But your book getting converted into a Netflix series.
Yeah, I mean, if it can continue, here's the thing. Everything I do has to be able to continue to help mental health and continue the conversation. You want to make this into a TV series just for a bit of fun and games, I'm not interested. But if you want to turn this into a TV series where the underlying aim is to continue promoting the message of mental health and ending the stigma, then 100% sign me up.
Fantastic. I think that's a fabulous you know, way to approach this. What I would do, Sidhartha, I will definitely once send you a copy of my book. I would also send you a little more information about soul wellness, the mental health,
I'd love that, please.
which is something that we are doing. I think with your passion for mental health, you are the kind of people that we are actually bringing in, and we have a title, official title for them called as Friends of Soul. So we would love for you to look at it, and if it makes sense, we would love for you to come on as
Look,
Friends of Soul.
Please do send me whatever you want. They have my email address, so just email me. Send me everything on email. We can have a read. And yes, just you know, and congratulations to you as well. Like, you know, I know it. Mental health awareness is still a struggle everywhere in the world, but in India, it's an uphill climb.
Yep.
But you know, it's positive that people like yourself are doing these initiatives, because here's the truth. I don't know how old you are. How old are you? Well, I'll just start with this.
I'm 44.
You're 44, I'm 34. Okay, 10 years, roughly the same generation.
Sure.
To be honest, we might not see any meaningful change in our lifetime.
Sure.
However, we can lay the seeds so the next kids and the next generation can see that meaningful change.
Sure. And I guess I want to be a little more optimistic. We may not change a societal change, that may not happen in our lifetime, but we will certainly see incremental changes in our lifetime.
100%. And it has to start somewhere, right? It has to start somewhere. And at the end of the day, look, we are temporary custodians of this planet. Our job is to leave it in a better condition than we found it in, is what I believe. So when we come back in our next life, it's in a better condition than it was in the one that we found it in this life. And if we can do that, and no matter how, no contribution is too big or too small. And that's what I have to remind people. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't know how I can help. You know, you don't have to go and cure mental illness overnight. All you have to do is just expand the conversation. And we all have a part to play in that.
Sure, absolutely. On that wonderful note, Sidhartha, thank you so much for coming on Pragati Vichar Literature Festival.
No, thank you very much for having me here. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.